Okay, so it's being recorded. So last week when, well, not last week, Tuesday, we had on the call Judith Grimaldi, and Judith was speaking about trusts, and she was also talking about the new Medicaid community home care changes, and how starting October 1st of 2020, they're going to have the 30-month look back.
Right.
So try to get that video up so that everybody could see, you know, what was going on there. I know Susan is also having some difficulty connecting. She's out and about. So tell us what's going on with you lately, Vicki.
Oh, let's see. I have been in my house. and, I've been on a lot of Zoom calls. And for somebody who is like totally resistant to Zoom, now I feel like I could teach it. But you know, I mean, I've been keeping myself busy or being kept busy. You know, whether it's through advocacy issues as well as other things that I'm involved in. And I've been also just focusing on. I mean, I've been exercising every day, and I'm a walker. When weather permits, I walk with my dogs, like 3-4 miles, so that's cool. And spending less money.
Uh-huh.
That's for sure.
And what about the house call business? What's happening with that during
Okay,
these?
so what's happening is that we are, you know, for the cases that we have, and for Danny's private, you know, in his private practice, all through telehealth now.
Uh-huh. So you do that by total phone, or you do Zoom calls for that, or?
It's Zoom. It's done, you know, it's done online. He has to have a visual. So, you know, he got set up on that, and that's what he's been doing. He actually just took on a couple of new patients the other day. So, you know, there's definitely a need for that. And, you know, and the other part of our practice, which has always been the hallmark of who we are, is that whenever we have to triage field calls and what, you know, et cetera. What we are seeing, you know, is that except for one of our house call cases, is that, you know, people who had AIDS, you know, are reluctant to have people come into their home right now, you know, and for good reason, and vice versa. You know, the aides don't want to go into the house. So, you know, it's complicated. This is, you know, I don't have to say this is a very complicated time in our lives.
So does his practice cover the 5 boroughs, Nassau and Suffolk? Is it limited to a particular area?
We have always covered Nassau, Western Suffolk, Eastern Queens, but I always say that people call me because, you know, we've had cases in Brooklyn, we've had cases in the city, and many of the cases need advocacy as well. You know, that's where my, you know, my experience and my expertise, excuse me, gets, you know, gets included in what we're doing. I mean, today, because it's telehealth, we, you know, we can take patients from anywhere in the metropolitan area.
Okay, sounds terrific. And regular coverage covers this, like healthcare coverage, or?
Telehealth, yes. And Medicare is set up, you know, now they're set up there. I don't think they actually had, there's going to be a code that's going to be established, but yeah, Medicare is going to pay. And I'm not sure that with the secondary insurance part of it, but Medicare definitely, because I mean, people need to be, you know, they need to be in touch with their doctor. They need medical care. And some, you know, as you can imagine, in the population that we serve, they have a, you know, myriad of health issues. So it's, yeah.
Right. Okay, great. Terrific. So this will be helpful, I think, to a lot of people who can't get out of their home.
Yeah.
I know I have 2 sisters in Brooklyn, and they had been complaining. One of them had some problems with blisters and stuff on her legs, and apparently has an aide that, believe it or not, the aide apparently is doing the bandaging, which I didn't understand, but anyway, I guess everybody chooses what they want to allow to have happen. And one of the people on the call a couple of weeks ago was able to actually reach out and set up one of these telemedicine calls. So it's definitely a great service for everybody to be able to, you know, have these things. It's just such a crazy time.
Yeah.
So I'm going to,
yeah.
yeah, everything helps, every little thing we can do.
Right.
So I'm going to put you back on mute so that when Karen comes on, it actually captures her video. Otherwise, it seems to interfere. So let me just unmute and remute. Hey, Karen. You there?
Me or the other Karen?
Yeah, it seems like we're having a very cozy little meeting here today. There's only 3 of us on the line. I don't know what happened. It seems people are having some kind of confusion getting in. I don't know why. Maybe I have to set it up a different way. In any event, anything new going on in your world? Karen, is that a no?
Oh, no, nothing new other than I'm tired of being in the house
Right.
and making up excuses to go out, you know, just to get out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Does any of this in any way create a special election period for folks?
You know what? There is. It's considered to be an emergency. And on the website, it has something to CMS website. It's something like a Sandy related or state of emergency. If it was a state of emergency, but they're not really pushing it. You know, if a person says I couldn't get to the Social Security office to apply for Medicare, or apply, in most cases it's the Part B because they have to physically go in for that. That can be a special election, but it's not really. It's not something that the companies are saying, you know, you have a special election, you can enroll this person. So it's kind of a one person type thing. And you know, and we just finished with open enrollment. So most people, you know.
Right, but there still are some folks out there that, you know, I come across who never enrolled in Part B. And so I know like someone having a power of attorney, I believe usually creates a special election period if they're going to use the power of attorney, or if they were to apply for EPIC, right? That's a special election period, correct?
So those special elections still exist. So, you know, there are enough of them there that, you know, moving, getting Part B, leaving work. And I think the most that we're going to see right now is people that are losing work and they were on a company plan and now they don't have insurance. So now they got to apply for Part B. And that's where the glitch is, because they have to get something from the Human Resources Department saying they had creditable coverage with their company. And then all of this is stuff that normally you go in Human Resources and pick it up and you take it to the Social Security office, and that's not possible. So it's interesting, but I'm not running into a whole bunch of people like that. I have one woman that mailed her Part B information from her company's Human Resources to the Mineola Social Security office, and she has a receipt saying that it was received there, but nothing else. So, you know, she's now trying to deal with stuff online and by phone, and there's nobody physically there to say, okay, we got it.
Can you do a DocuSign on that kind of stuff?
I think it has to do with people physically being in the office to even.
Well, that's what I'm saying. With DocuSign, they wouldn't have to be in an office.
Exactly, right? Exactly. But that hasn't come up as a possibility.
Not an alternative.
Yeah, they're calling up the 800 number and they're being told send it in. And I don't think the people that are on the 800 number, you know, even know, you know, the 1-800, what is it? 121-773-1212. They don't even know what to do, you know, and we have enough issues with people physically going into the office. So with the office being closed, or offices being closed, it's a whole nother can of worms, believe me.
So anybody trying to change at this time, it's actually quite difficult if they needed to change plans. Like, what about even to go into like a supplement plan is not, you know,
See,
even
all of that,
something
all
that,
those election periods have passed, because to go into a supplement, they would have to have dropped Medicare Advantage by February 14th.
oh, really? They can't just go
Yeah.
into a supplement at any time?
They have to go back to original Medicare.
And what if they use a power of attorney?
I don't know if that has any.
So I have a question about that, Karen.
Oh, wait, let me make sure you're unmuted. Okay, good.
I unmuted myself. I have a question about that.
Okay.
Okay. So I was contacted by a woman, and it turns out her mom is in a nursing home. It's a long story. I won't bore you with the whole story, but she needed some potential advocacy intervention and some.
Okay.
Now, as I understand it, and this happened to me because not this year, but the year before, where I had a Medicare Advantage program, but I wanted to go back on regular Medicare and a supplement. And it happened with me. It was a very bad time because I had gotten sick and stuff like that. Also a long story. That I understand that if you want to, even though there's the enrollment period which ends on December 15th, that there is a provision that if you want to change now, that it's kind of like the last effort. That from January 1st to March 31st, you can still go ahead and change back to regular Medicare and a supplement. Does that still stand?
It still stands. Well, there's two different periods that are going. One is the Medicare Advantage disenrollment period, which is January 1st to February 14th. And then there's the open enrollment period. But, you know, you realize that all things considered, if a person makes enough noise, they can get out of a Medicare Advantage plan.
Yeah, and that was my second part of my question, because what my feeling was with this particular case, and it had to do with the nursing home, and have you ever heard of Levanta? Has that name sound familiar to you? That's another conversation. Anyway, what I thought she might have some type of like last ditch effort, because he wants her mother to go back on regular Medicare, is that with all this pandemonium with the COVID-19 and everybody's crazy and this and that she might still be able to go back and say, listen, you know what? I was in the middle of this. I mean, and that's what I want to recommend to her to do. Reasonable to you?
And that's about it. Everything, you know, everything is not the way it would normally be. This is an emergency.
Right.
And
her mother has issues, and she should be. In this particular case, she should be back on regular Medicare and a supplement. I'm going to talk to them. Okay.
Yeah, and they basically have to get in touch with Medicare and
right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Let me go get my tea. I'll be right back.
Okay, I think that Joanne is on the line with us now, and having some little difficulties there with getting people in. So we only have a few of us on the line, Joanne. It is being recorded, and all of this will end up on PESID.com on the post that you saw for the meeting. So that usually could take about a week. That's pretty much where we're at. I see someone else is also, looks like, calling in. Who do we have on that 347-628-7916 number?
Karen Scarlato.
Hey, Karen, how are you?
I'm good. It just took me a while, and you know what? I kept getting last week's meeting, and if I can't use it on my Zoom.
Yeah, you can't just do the same meeting. Every single meeting that I do has a new ID number. And that's because we don't want the Zoom bombing thing going on.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
And you have to register for the meetings. So you have to actually click on the link, and then that link will register you. So even if you have an account, if you didn't register for this particular meeting, and that's so we know everyone who's been on our call, then it doesn't let you in. So normally if you go to like PESID.com or you go to the meetup site, you'll see an actual link. You need to click that link, register, and then you'll be able to enter with the ID. And that's how we can keep control of week to week who's on the calls, and, you know notify those people again that meetings are coming up, make sure everybody's getting, messages so that they know what's happening. So Karen, we have Vicki on the call, and we have Karen Taylor on the call. You can't see them, and Joanne Seminara got on. We have a little bit of a small group at the moment, but we were having some very nice discussions. Vicki telling us how her and Dr. Dan are doing telecalls for telemedicine, you call it, right, Vicki?
Right.
Okay.
Hi, how are you?
Very good.
How are you? Good to see you.
Good, thank you. I hope you're well too. Good.
Listen, I'm trying to stay well, like we all are, right?
Right. So all good. So Karen Taylor was telling us a little bit about how, during this time, it's kind of an emergency time like during Sandy, but yet they haven't really made it, it seems like, a special election period. Correct, Karen?
Right. There is a category for state of emergency, but it was funny because a couple of companies came out and said this is a special election, and they recanted. So something happened there, but I just don't think they want people to use it as a special election unless it's really, really, really absolutely necessary.
Right. Okay, so Joanne, if you want to start your presentation, I know Joanne is going to talk about the use of wills versus trust, and whether or not a will for planning solves the estate planning riddle. And the question here is really, is a trust really a must, or will a will do? So with that said, Joanne, please let us know what's happening.
Okay. So I know you have a PowerPoint. Are you able to use that?
Yes, let me get that open. Let me go back to screen share. And let me, give me half a second. Why don't you, for the moment, introduce yourself?
Sure. So I know some of you already. So my name's Joanne Seminara. I've been in practice for almost 34 years, and I focus my practice in estate planning and elder law. So I'm going to focus on the planning part, which also has an impact, of course, on Medicaid benefits, which is a big part of our practice, our elder law practice, where we help people address their medical needs or their needs as they get older and frail, and their ability to pay for those needs and kind of coordinate all their care. A question that people often have is, should I make a trust? Should I make a will? What do I need, and why do I need it? And I think everyone sort of understands what a will is. A will is a document in which you express your wishes about where your assets are going to go and who's going to be in charge, your executor, when you pass away. A will goes through probate, if you will, meaning the court. It has to go through a court process, which can be short or long, depending on the complexity of your will, depending on who your beneficiaries are, and whether you are leaving your assets to your natural heirs. So I don't know. Are you going to move the screen for me?
I'm going to try to, and I will try to give you a remote control. If you know how to do that, I'll do that.
I don't know how to do it, but maybe I can learn. Anyway, I'm going to keep talking. So I want to talk about the different...
You could just tell me to change the slides if that's easier.
Okay, you can change, right. I'm going to... you can move it. Move it.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about why you might need a trust and how it's different than a will, the types of trusts, and how they also incorporate special needs. If you could switch. Next. It's part of estate planning. Part of the things we try to do in estate planning is simplify things, minimize possible taxes, protect assets if you're going to need very significant healthcare costs in the future, and make your plan known in a very clear way so that your family members and your loved ones understand your wishes. And we avoid family strife and litigation. Next, please. If I just say next, is that, yeah.
That's
okay.
good, yeah.
So Some of it might include planning for your spouse, death, and obviously your disability. If you have minor children or loved ones with disabilities you want to provide for, that is done in a trust, and being very clear, and many times avoiding probate next. So the things you do in estate planning are make provisions for who's going to get your stuff, your personal property or your tangible personal property or things, who's going to get your money. That might be different than who gets your real estate. If you have real estate, if you have special instructions like, I want my brother to be able to live in my house that I own for the rest of his life before I give it to X. I want to give someone the right to reside there. Sometimes it's called a life estate or a right of occupancy. And who's going to be in charge of implementing my decisions? If it's a will, it's an executor. If it's a trust, it's a trustee. Judy talked about the really basic advance directives. I'm not going to go through them, but they're critical while you're alive. A power of attorney, so you have an agent to take care of your affairs, including making trusts, a healthcare proxy, a HIPAA release, so that your proxy agent can see your medical conditions, and a living will, which talks about your decisions at the end of life. And those are called advance directives. So you need a will and/or you need a trust to handle your passage of your assets, unless all your assets have beneficiary designations on them or they're held jointly. Of course, if your beneficiary or your joint owner survives you and all is well and you don't spend down all the money because you have catastrophic healthcare costs, you will avoid having to use a trust or a will. However, that's sort of a dangerous way to go because there's always the possibility your joint owner or beneficiary will predecease you or need benefits him or herself, and then they end up, either dissipating those assets or you end up without a plan because they predeceased you. So the assets that go through a will are those assets that don't have a beneficiary name, are in your name alone, and can only pass if the will goes to probate. So if I own assets with my husband and I die first, he automatically gets those assets. I don't have to probate my will. And that would be true of any asset that has a beneficiary designation or a joint owner. Probate assets are only those things you own in your sole name. Next, please. So non-probate, I just talked about beneficiary designations, retirement accounts, and trusts. So next, please. Trusts will help you to avoid probate. I'm going to skip this one because I think I kind of went over it at the beginning. And I'll skip that as well. I really want to get more into trusts. So it's a little short on time.
Yep.
But it's good to say that if you have no plan, if you neither have a will nor have a trust that actually owns your assets, you don't have a plan. And if you don't have a plan and you die with assets in your name alone, well, what happens? Well, the law decides who gets your assets, and you have to go through a process called an estate administration or a no-will proceeding, which is called an administration, and we'll go to the law books to say who gets your assets. Maybe you have 16 first cousins and you don't care about most of them, but they're going to get all your assets if you don't have a plan which specifically says who takes. And the law says who takes. It takes longer to do an administration, not to have a plan. The court will decide who's going to be in charge, who's going to be your administrator, because you haven't appointed an executor or a trustee. And often that decision alone creates disputes among family members. It's more expensive. You have to get a bond, and life gets very complicated very quickly if you have to go through that process. And it's particularly sad when people have very little and they have to go through an administration and all these issues to move $100,000 and spend $30,000 to get there. So these are some of the things I just talked about. You need to prove the family tree, you need to get a bond, etc. So you need something. Unless you have everything joint and you die before your spouse or your loved one with whom you own stuff joint. But we can't predict the future, and so it's a dangerous proposition not to have some planning in place. Next, please. So a trust is steered or managed by a trustee. And the easiest way to explain it, and when I do my in-person presentations, I have a trust box. So I show the box because the box is the vessel or the article or the box or container that holds the assets. And the trust is simply an agreement between the person who creates the trust, typically called the grantor. I'm creating a trust, that's me. I go to my lawyer and say, I'd like to create this bucket, this box, this trust, and this is what I'd like to say about it. In my lifetime, I want all the assets to be for me because I need those assets. And when I die, part B of the trust says who gets them when I die. No courts are involved, no contacting beneficiaries my heirs who would have to be notified if I had a will and went through probate, even if they're not getting anything. The trust sets forth simply to whom the trustee divides or distributes the assets. It's a private document, it's simple, and it can take care of every eventuality that might come up. For example, if you could do the next slide, it takes care of the possibility that I might want to set up a special needs trust for someone who I want to leave assets to who is disabled and might lose their benefits if I leave them something. I can stuff that into my trust. I can call that a testamentary trust. It can be revocable or irrevocable. A revocable trust is, as you imagine, a trust that can be changed at any time. I can change the beneficiaries. I can take assets in and out. I can tear it up. An irrevocable trust is a trust that I'm going to transfer assets to completely outside my control. Typically, I won't have the right to be distributed any of those assets during my lifetime. And very often in our practice, those are Medicaid protective trusts. We call them Medicaid asset protective trusts. They have a double wall around them. You put the asset in the trust, you can't have access to it. And when Medicaid comes around, assuming you've passed that 5-year period for home care, they'll say it's of no consequence that you gave your assets away and locked them up in this trust because you don't own it. That's a special way of doing planning for someone who thinks they might need Medicaid in the future. And if they need nursing home care, they will have to do that, create that trust and put their assets irrevocably into this trust, Medicaid trust, 5 years before their nursing home eligibility for Medicaid. And just by way of further elucidation on that, there used to be no look-back period for home care Medicaid, and the state law just changed as of applications for Medicaid filed on October 1st. There will be a 30-month penalty period, look-back period with respect to applications for home care. So we're in the process of telling our clients, if you want to transfer assets to qualify for home care, you've got to do that now and get your application for home care in before October 1st so you don't incur a penalty period for having transferred assets prior to your application after 10/1. So that's something people need to consider if they're close to needing Medicaid services at home and need to transfer assets. So revocable trusts, remember my box, if you will, or my bucket, is something you can put things into and take things out of all the time, have complete control, change your trustees, change the assets, change your disposition and who's getting what. And one of the really trust, I used to say a trust is a must if you own real estate in more than one state. If you have a condo in Florida and a house in Brooklyn, you want both the deeds in the revocable trust so you don't have to do a probate in Brooklyn where you live in your primary residence and then do another probate in Florida to move that trust or distribute that trust that's in Florida. 2 probates, more complicated, more expensive than 1. If you have assets, real estate in more than one state, that's when you need a trust. If you have loved ones who are your natural heirs who you are not leaving assets to. I have 3 kids. I'm only leaving to 2 because I have a ne'er-do-well son. I'm leaving him out. by not having a probate, I don't invite him into the courtroom to say, my mom forgot me. She forgot she had a son. She wasn't, there was no, I'm going to contest this will. A trust is much harder to contest. And it also, so if you're not leaving to your natural heirs, if you have property real estate out of state, if you want to protect certain assets by putting them in further trust for someone else, it's really neat and tidy to do that within a trust. If I have a child who's not good with money, I want to leave him or her $200,000 in trust and put my sister in charge of it. I don't have to go to court to have that trustee appointed if I do it inside the vehicle of a trust. If I do it in a will, the court has to name the trustee, and the courts are now involved in the accountings for those funds. Everything within a trust is much more private and can be very clearly tailored to someone's needs, whether it's the need for future Medicaid in an irrevocable trust, the need to shield assets from minors or people who are going to waste it and do themselves harm with it, and the ability to kind of control things in the future through a further trust, or for someone who's disabled in a supplemental needs trust. So a supplemental needs trust is a trust in which you can leave a part of your assets, either through a trust or a will, in a special bucket for someone who has disabilities so that they do not lose their government benefits, and the money you left them can be used only for those things the government doesn't provide. And it's really incredibly wonderful to be able to do that and have people have their benefits stay in place, rather than lose them as soon as your money hits, has to be distributed to them. So trusts are really malleable. They're very important. For those of our clients right now who have trusts and are passing away very sadly, we can settle their estates much more quickly because we have a trust and we're not at the mercy of the courts, which of course are all closed. I have many estates that are in complete frozen in limbo, real estate, no money to take care of assets. And I know that they're not going to get through probate for 6 or 8 months because those petitions for probate are just piling up in attorneys' offices and they can't even be filed. In Kings County, they're accepting no filings right now, except for emergencies. And so sadly, a lot of real estate is going to, lie fallow. I have one parcel of real estate in which squatters have moved in. There's no money to do much to protect that property and I can't get it through probate. I can't even get someone temporarily appointed to manage that property because the court in Kings County is closed. If you do things through trusts, you have your next, and like if I'm my trustee and I become infirm, my next trustee, my sister is already by my side, ready to take over and ready to use the trust for me, and then when I die to distribute it according to my wishes without the interventions of the court. So I think I've talked enough, and I've talked pretty fast, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if people have them.
Okay, let me just go unmute everybody. Okay, I think I've unmuted just about everyone. Okay, anyone have any questions they want to ask? Hi, Alan. See you jumped on the call.
Hey, and yeah, sorry I'm so late. I got stuck on a client call, so I apologize.
That's okay. Does anyone have any questions about trusts, irrevocable, revocable, wills?
I do.
Okay, Vicki.
Yeah, hi. Okay. So thanks, Joanne, for that, that great presentation. I have a couple of things. First, I have a question about living will. The living will, is that specifically used for what healthcare decisions? I mean,
okay.
I mean, what would be incorporated, and then because then I'll ask a secondary question after
okay.
that.
So a living will is a document, that expresses your wishes regarding end-of-life decision-making.
Mm-hmm.
It is a companion document to the healthcare proxy, A healthcare proxy is a document in which you appoint an agent and maybe a couple of alternates to make healthcare decisions for you if you cannot make them yourself. Now, that typically includes end-of-life decisions, but a separate document called a living will, which is a terrible name because it sounds like will, is a specific written document that says what your wishes are when your death is imminent and there is no reasonable expectation of recovery from your final illness. It says typically that you do not wish to be kept alive by artificial means that simply supplant or replace your normal bodily functions, like feeding tubes and artificial respiration and nutrition, and even IV, intravenous feedings or fluid intake. So it's a static document that most of our clients sign that say, you know, I know I appointed an agent. My agent will make these decisions for me. But in addition to that, I want to make known that I don't want extraordinary means to keep me alive if I am dying. And in our practice, we separate them into two documents for the reason being that we want our agents to have maximum control as to when they pick up that living will and says, doctor, hospital, it's time. My mother has suffered enough. I'm in charge of the decision. She made this document because she doesn't want to be in the condition that she finds herself in now. And so we don't give it up at the beginning. We show up with it when the family makes a decision that it's time to end the suffering.
Yeah, because I mean, and that's always what I thought it was. And I heard something, and I'll explain that a little bit more the other day, that someone said, oh, you know what, it could be as broad or as specific as what you want. And I thought, is that really true? I mean, why would you want to have something broad, especially if it's related to healthcare decisions? So I don't know if maybe I'm misunderstanding. And the second part of that, in terms of how this was presented, was that, oh, well, you know, you could put into that document, you know, I want to be, I mean, excuse the blatancy of this, you know, I want to be buried in my red dress, you know, with the long sleeves or whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, is that really what that document is being used for? And before you answer, I'll give you what I am seeing, Joanne, is that there is an infiltration of people who are now, you know, calling themselves advanced directive consultants and things like that, where they're talking to people about healthcare proxies and DNRs, living wills, and they do consults and on and on. And I, from hearing what they're saying, feel that there's, you know, some kind of, you know, it really can potentially disenfranchise people. They're really not getting the correct advice. I'm very concerned about it as a nurse and as an advocate.
That's interesting. I haven't heard of these agents, but in a living will, you can actually be as specific or broad as you choose to. There's a danger in being very specific because the specifics might not be applicable to the situation which, you know, you imagine you're going to find yourself in. You can say, I do want IV fluids if I am dying. I don't want to be kept. I want to be fed, but I don't want to be intubated. I mean, you can get down to the nitty-gritty details if you want to. Most people do not, because they put those basic decisions in the hands of their agent. Mm-hmm. But I do have many people who say they do want intravenous IV, because that in the general power living will that I see, it allows for the cessation of all artificial means of keeping somebody alive. And I, you know, not to be gruesome, but you don't want to desiccate to death. You want to have fluid. Right. So some people feel strongly about that. In the days of Corona, sadly enough, you know, in fact, our firm had a little meeting this morning about this online. You know, if you need to be on a respirator because you have this condition, which hopefully is not, it might be temporary, then you want to be on the respirator. Right. It's not really, you're not really living will eligible, because living will is when death is imminent and there is no reasonable expectation of recovery. So as soon as there's an expectation of recovery, it's not living will time. And the reason we separate the two documents is we don't want a hospital or a doctor to assume it's living will time if we, in our heart of hearts, says, no, my mom deserves another chance. We want to show up with the living will when we think it's time to do that.
Right.
So the red dress with the long sleeves, that doesn't go in a living will ever. If you have a specific wish regarding how you wish to be buried or how your burial should proceed or what ceremonies you might want, that goes in a different document called appointing an agent to dispose of my remains. It's a New York State health statute. It's called agent to dispose of my remains. And so agent to dispose of remains form designates who is in charge of handling your body when you die. And if you want a red dress, you can write it in on the form and maybe you'll get your red dress. And if you want to, a religious burial or you want to be sprinkled on the ocean, that's where those instructions go, not in a living will. Living will is dealing with someone who's alive and who is dying.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you both. Anyone else has any questions, please just raise your hand in the air so I could see you. Okay, so no more questions at this time. I see that Susan Eisner, who is a certified havening techniques practitioner, has come on the line. And so Susan is going to lead us through a guided meditation using healing techniques. If I can get her unmuted, there we go. And so I'll mute everyone else. And Susan, you can take over the call now.
Hi there, everybody. My apologies for being late. Things ran a little crazy, but I ran home and got on the call. Who is the person that's on the phone? Do we have a name?
That's Karen Scalato.
Oh, okay. Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Okay, so I believe I know all of the rest of you. Joanne, hello. We haven't met. So what can we do today? So some of you have heard my description of havening. This is a new technique, and Vicki, I think I've told you about it here and there. So we're going to do a demonstration today. Havening is a mind-body healing technique that can work very quickly. It's a neuroscience-based technique that when you do it, you change the chemistry in your brain so that it basically breaks the neurochemical connection between when you've had a trauma or some negative event in your life. It could even be an ongoing negative thing, that rather than continuing to have the same angst or anger or sadness or whatever you might have had related to it, you now have a whole different feeling about it. You can be okay knowing this thing happened to you. Sometimes havening can actually disappear the old memories out of your head. So when people need to go testify about something, we tell them to testify. Don't do your havening before you've testified for that horrible crime that you saw, for example, because you may not have it in your head anymore. So that doesn't usually happen, but it is possible. So anyway, havening is a psychosensory technique. And this is, so there are two ways of using it. We're going to use the self-havening today, which I'm going to show you. And havening includes what makes the brain changes able to happen is called havening touch. So you're going to be using your hands on your upper part of your body to relax yourself into a place where you increase the delta brain waves in your brain, which is basically a brainwave when you're in a deep sleep. So you're very, very relaxed. And that sets off as you work on an issue. Now, when we do a session, it's an individual one-to-one coaching session, you're gonna come to me and say, I wanna work on, I wanna quit smoking, or I'm having a lot of anxiety about, I'm getting involved in a new relationship and I was raped when I was younger and now it's time to have sex and I don't want to go near this person. I'm really anxious about it. Okay, what can we do to help you deal with the trauma that happened and the negative effect it's still having on you? So when you do the touch, which we'll all demonstrate in a moment, that generates the ability for the brain to make some neurochemical changes as you work on the issue. And those sessions are 90 minutes to 2 hours long typically, and those I would set up with you privately. Self-havening, I'll teach you now, you can do on your own. Anytime you have a stressful moment. It's like doing a little meditation, except it's got a touch component to it. And it'll put you in that brainwave, that delta brainwave, so you'll be very relaxed. And it will open you up to being able to much more effectively deal with whatever you have going on in that moment. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So you're doing motions that are on the upper arms. So you're gonna lift up your hands and cross your hands in front of you, and then place them on your shoulders. Okay, and then you're gonna bring the hands down to your elbows. And you come back up to the shoulders, down to the elbows, up to the shoulders, down to the elbows. Okay, that's part one. Part two is you're gonna do, you can either do it kind of like this, very gently, all the touches are very gentle, or you can do this, whatever feels comfortable. I broke my wrist not long ago, so this one hurts. So this is a lot easier for me, but so we have down, crossing the arms down from the shoulders to the elbows. We have the hands go like this. And depending on whether you want to do this or not, there is a third component. We should tell people to wash their hands before they come on this call a bit. So the hand motions, if you're comfortable, only if you're comfortable, you do not need to do them. This will work fine without them. But just so that you know what they look like is you're touching the forehead and your cheeks, kind of like this. And again, if you prefer to do this after you've washed your hands, no problem, okay? So it will be 2 or 3 of these in a row. Then you're gonna do the hands 2, 3, 4 times, whatever sort of feels right. And if you'd like to do the face, you can do that. Or you can just kind of go like this, okay? And you're gonna continually repeat that as we go through the session, okay, as we go through the demo. And what I'm gonna ask you to do is to close your eyes. A nice time to do this, I do this every day after I wake up in the morning. I meditate for about 10 minutes and then I do about 5 minutes of this, okay? And the combination together is great, but even just alone, it's great. You can go disappear into a bathroom somewhere during the day if you need to, or in your office, close your door. If you're in your car, keep your eyes open. I was gonna say you're sitting in traffic, probably you're not gonna hit that much of that right now. But it's helpful to do it with the eyes closed. So let's start, okay? So I'm gonna ask you all to close your eyes and bring up your hands to the shoulders, and then just begin the havening touch. Gently, very kind and caring touch towards yourself. You're gonna do your shoulders, the hands, and if you'd like, the face. Just continuing to repeat. I'd like you to take a nice, slow, deep breath. In through the nose, hold the breath, and then gently blow it all the way out. And another nice, slow, deep breath in, holding the breath. And then gently all the way out through the mouth, empty out your lungs. Just let yourself relax into your chair, continuing the havening motions. And just continue taking some nice deep breaths. And I want you to think to yourself of any kind of a situation that you may have going on right now that's causing you a little bit of distress. It could even be the whole pandemic as a whole if you want, some aspect of how it's affecting you, or it could have nothing to do with the pandemic. It could be something, maybe you miss talking to a particular person, or maybe you have a behavior you'd like to change. And I'd like you to bring into your mind that situation. And maybe in a scenario of what it would look like. Taking some deep breaths. Allow any emotions to come up on a 1 to 10 scale, or even a 0 to 10. 10 being it's really bad, and 1, it doesn't bother you at all. And give yourself a rating for how much of an issue this thing is in your life right now. Okay. Just another couple deep breaths. And then we're going to have you put this out of your mind. Okay. Now I want you to picture, we're going to do what we call distraction techniques. This is one type of havening technique. There are many. So I want you to picture a mountainside. And I want you to picture, you know what, we'll do this differently. I want you to picture a cloud, a nice comfy looking cloud. And I want you to picture a ladder. And the cloud's kind of low lying, so you can climb up it in about 20 steps. Okay? So picture yourself at the bottom of the ladder, and I want you counting out loud to yourself, 1 to 20, and as you go from the bottom to the top, get to the top of the cloud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Continue counting to yourself. And now when you come to the top, you'll see some nice plush chairs that you can sit in. And you'll see more clouds around you, but it is a nice sunny day. And you might see some nice scenery. You might see some birds. Okay, you may see some stars that might be shining also. And I want you to hum a tune to yourself. So let's pick Mary Had a Little Lamb. This may sound a little weird to do. So if we're all doing it together, then nobody's listening to anyone else. So I'm going to hum out loud. Hum with me. So continue the havening touch. And now I want you to take a look around you in this very nice, comfortable chair that you're in on this beautiful cloud. And I want you to look around and find something you can count. So maybe it's some birds flying by. Maybe it's some trees, tall trees you see below you. You can even walk around on your cloud and go in a circle and count your steps. Okay, make sure you have a rail around you if you're going to walk. So I want you to count again from 1 to, let's say, 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And now we're going to have you one more time. We're going to hum again. Okay, we'll pick the same one since it's an easy one. To yourself, but out loud so you can hear yourself. So now I want you to take another couple nice deep breaths, continue the havening motions, and now allow that whole scene to disappear from your mind. And now what I'd like you to picture, if you go back to that issue that you were struggling with, I want you to bring up a scene in your mind where you can see yourself where the struggle is gone and you've fixed the situation. So maybe you've done the havening session and you feel more comfortable to be sexual with your new partner. Or you feel like you feel more capable and ready to change your behavior. That angst around it is not there anymore. Just picture yourself successfully being in that situation. Take a few deep breaths. Continue the havening touch and see what emotions come up for you now. They might be things like relief, happy, excited. It might be something more subdued, just like calm, relax. Whatever the feeling is, just be conscious of what it is. And there may be a few. Okay, and the last thing we're going to do now is, as you see yourself in success, you're going to just say a couple of words to yourself that are, I can't think of the name of the words. They're words that make you feel comfortable and that you'll be successful. So it might be something like motivated, able to change, able to get through any obstacles as I make the change. Comfortable. Any other phrases or words that make you feel like, yes, this will be possible for me. This is possible for me. Affirmations, that's the word. Words that affirm your ability. Okay, so now we're going to allow all that to disappear from your mind. Just do a little bit more of the havening touch. And ask yourself now, what number are you at on that rating scale from 0 to 10? And see if the number has changed, and if so, what number is it at now? Okay, you can now begin to come back into the room. You can stop the motions. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Ooh,
Thank you, Susan.
much clearer. So how many of you were able to drop the number down at least some degree during this practice?
I was, yes.
Okay, great. So that's like a little mini havening session, okay? You can do for you, if you don't remember all that, you can just do what I do every morning after my meditation. I do my touch. I think about things I need to get done for the day. And I'll say things like, you envision actually what you want done. And I will say things like, desk will be cleaned off, phone calls made, table sent to Annette, whatever it might be. And I picture that. And then I feel some gratitude that, ooh, I got that done. Simply doing that, or just saying a few things like healthy food, healthy meals today, get my exercise, something you want to accomplish that you want to kind of implant in your brain. The havening will allow that to take, and you'll be more likely to get it done. And if not that day, it'll get done within the next few days because you're planting some seeds in there. And if you're interested, I'm going to send those of you who I haven't already sent some information about the havening, about doing actual sessions. And I'm looking to partner with people to start offering these at assisted living facilities, for any of the people that are in all the networking groups that we all belong to, the senior networking groups, health professionals, mental health professionals, whoever, your children, you, and we could set up a time and to talk about that a little bit more. And I really want to tell Annette, thank you so much for the opportunity for me to do this. I really hope you all go home now and a lot more relaxed, and we'll have a more wonderful day. But I think this stuff is like really magic. It has helped me clean up my clutter problem in one session that I had. And some of you know Karen Isaacs. She's one of my clients, and she runs the Sun Q Senior Umbrella Network Queens meeting, and there was a point where the meeting was about to fall apart. And she was on the board, but she didn't feel like doing all this work anymore and pushing everybody, and nobody wanted to really do the jobs. And we did a havening session, and she didn't want to get off the board and let the meeting die. She wanted other people in there to participate. She was upset to no end. And she was upset to no end that the thing might die. Well, we did a session, and in that one session, she was able to get clear about her feelings. She got very clear about her needs. And we set it up so that she made a very happy decision to become a co-chair for a year, stick with the meeting, and that felt doable to her, and other people joined the board. They have a functioning group again. So I'm the reason why that happened. I just want you all to know. But anyway, our work together. It actually
okay, Susan.
happened the way it did. So.
Susan is telling you all of this because Karen gave her the permission to use this as a testimonial.
Oh, okay.
She didn't say, so it's
Sorry,
not sharing something.
Other people's permission
to share.
Thank you.
So with all of that said, thank you so much, Joanne Seminara from Grimaldi Yeung for giving us some legal information that we all need, especially in these times. And Vicki Ellner for your years of service to the senior community. I always look up to you and admire the things you've done. Karen Taylor, thanks for being on the call. Karen Scarlato, and of course, Susan Eisner. May you all bring joy and hope to everyone. And we'll keep these calls going even after the virus is long gone. And hopefully these will be recorded sessions that people can go to PESID.com. They'll be able to see the videos, look back, get information. So even if they're not on the call today, because there were a lot of people who said, oh, I can't make it today. I've got this meeting, that meeting. It seems like we're all getting back to work. Even reverse mortgages are back online. And for the last 24 hours, in New York, they've been online everywhere else, but New York is a special kind of place. And so I've had nothing but like tons of emails on rules and regulations and all the things I should do. And I don't even do them right away because I'm afraid an hour later someone will send me something that contradicts what they told me the hour before. So I'm kind of like, okay, chilling and just reading them all. That's how much of it there is. So probably by Tuesday, I'll give everyone an update on what's going on in New York with the reverse mortgages. Okay, everyone. See you all soon. Take care.
Thanks a lot, Annette.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye now.